Okay, now I'm continuing that logging mechanism. Okay, previously I covered the two examples of why we need logging mechanism. Now I'm continuing that same topic. Before going to the logging recoverable mechanism, I will give another example why we need logging. So this example explain without logging how the database is working and what are the drawbacks, and by the help of logging mechanism we can fill the drawbacks. Okay, so uh, so here we have RAM. Okay, here assuming that some data is there. Now I am flushing this data to the hard disk to make stable or to make durable. Okay, now we don't have any logging mechanism. Without logging mechanism, what are the problems we observe here is, and why we need logging mechanism here also. Let us take the business application making three transactions. Assuming now these transactions are happening sequentially. We will cover later when these three transactions are happening parallelly. Now we considering the scenario that these three transactions are happening sequential only. Sequential transaction. Let us take this is my local memory which is assigned for transaction. Okay, this is the local memory which is assigned for transaction, and I will cover later in logger mechanism what is read, write, and what is output input, because those concepts help. Okay, then we have local memory. After that we have global memory, and in global memory, let us take it is we have contained pages, data pages. From that global memory only flushing of the data pages happen to the hard disk or begin to the non-volatile memory. These two is present in volatile only. Now assuming we said already our assumption that all transactions are happening sequentially. So first transaction it is happening, it is doing some operation and local state something memory consume. After that it is modifying the some data pages. Assuming it is modifying three pages, one is A, B, C. Let us take transaction 1 which is modifying three pages. Okay, now after that transaction 2 is occurring, this one modifying two pages B and D, and transaction 2 is completed. Okay, we'll cover later how these pages is retrieved here in global memory from the hard disk. Now I am just concentrating in the logging, why we need logging mechanism. So now continuing, this T2 will modify which pages? B and D, where T1 is modifying A, B, C. Okay, these T1 and T2 is completed. In completed, that means it is committed, successfully completed, that means it is committed. Now T3 is started. This T3 is modifying B, C and E. What it is doing? T3 is modifying B and C and this E. E is new page. Okay, but this T3 is not yet completed. It is in the middle of the processing only, whether it is in finally, whether it state become either aborted or committed, but now current it is in processing state only, not yet in the final state. At that time, what happening? Flushing is happen. So how it is happening, we will cover that one later. Now assuming that this data is due to the memory pressure, some buffer manager will take the responsibility to flush. Now this one is flushing is happen, one scenario. Otherwise, next scenario is we will cover flushing mechanism later. That's why another scenario is suddenly power cut is happen. These two things. Okay. And before power cut, this whole data. Okay, for this example, it will be better instead of power cut, flushing is happen, because we didn't cover yet logging mechanism. In the logging mechanism, through val ahead, already data is saved in non-volatile. That's why I am covering here as with flushing. Both scenarios is same with flushing as well as power cut. Now, due to flushing, we have A, B, C, D, E pages. These 5 pages. In that 5 pages, what B, C, E, these are in inconsistent state, because we don't know whether the process or whether the transaction which is modifying these pages is completed or not, whether it is in middle of the transaction or abortion of the transaction, either completion of the transaction or abortion of the transaction. After flushing, now power cut is happen. So after power cut, when our database engine is on, it check A is there, D is there, it guaranteed that it is contain consistent data, but B, C, E is inconsistent data. We for that, by seeing that inconsistent data, how can we make that B, C, E into consistent? Okay, it need to again check what are the logs there. By seeing that log, B last final state which is consistent and some 2-3 modification has done by the some transaction, but this transaction is not yet committed, so we have to remove this state. Okay, here you observe that logging mechanism help to make BCE is into consistent state to make atomicity. Otherwise BCE is in invalid data. Already covered the example 1. Here example 3 I am explaining from the point of pages. The pages which are in consistent page, the pages which are in inconsistent page. But in example 1 I cover based on the scenario of requirement from the user 1 having inconsistent data, user 2 having inconsistent data from the point of user requirement or user data. Now I am here explained from the point of pages. Some pages are in consistent state, some pages are in inconsistent state. So how can we make the pages which are in inconsistent state to the consistent state through the help of logging mechanism. So okay, overall we conclude that we need logging mechanism. So by seeing the logging mechanism, recoverability will be happen. Then who is using that logging? We have recoverability mechanism. Recoverability take the responsibility to make pages into consistent, to make transaction as atomicity. So recoverability mechanism take the responsibility. Then how it can do this thing to make atomicity and pages to be consistent? So it uses logging. So recovery mechanism, during the transaction time, it captures some data, that is nothing but log data. Before failure or for each transaction, for each operation, log records are maintained. Those log records data it uses recoverability mechanism. And what it will do by using that data? It do only two things. One is undo, next is redo. Okay, these two operations only. For previous example, BCE, it undo transaction 3. By undoing the transaction T3, it make the consistent page. Okay, recovery mechanism will take the responsibility. It will do only two operations: undo operation and redo operation. Okay, in next lecture I will cover whole log based recovery mechanism. Okay, there what are the components? Used and what are the component, and how undo and redo is happening. These two things, these 3 points we will cover in next lecture.